Welcome back to TFT Central. Today we're going to be running through the latest OLED monitor panel information from both LG Display and Samsung Display, the manufacturers who make all the actual panels used in the OLED monitor market. We'll clarify some areas of confusion we've seen discussed online, we'll give you some updates and details of some new panels that we know about that are being planned, updates on all the other panels that are coming, and cover off some frequently asked questions we've been getting from our readers and viewers. Let's cover the Samsung QD-OLED panels first then. Samsung were the first to produce these new high refresh rate monitor sized OLED panels back in 2022. They're now in their third generation of OLED panel, and their generations generally align with each year that they were produced. Back in 2022, their first generation panel was available in a 34-inch ultra-wide size with a 3440 by 1440 resolution and 175Hz refresh rate. It's got a 1800R curvature and has been featured in loads of monitors that you'll find available still today, including, for instance, the Dell Alienware AW3423DW that we reviewed back then and which was the first to market using this panel. Last year in 2023, they produced their second generation panel, which was available in a 49-inch super ultra-wide format with a 5120 by 1440 resolution, equivalent to dual 1440p monitors, and with options for a 144Hz or 240Hz refresh rate. That also has a subtle 1800R curvature, and each refresh rate version of the panel has been adopted by monitor manufacturers already, including, for instance, the Samsung Odyssey G95 SC, which uses the 240Hz version, and the Asus ROG Swift PG49 WCD, which uses the 144Hz version. These second-gen panels in 2023 offered some efficiency and durability improvements, although most noticeable from a monitor point of view was an update to the pixel structure. There were improvements made to the size and shape of the RGB subpixels, which resulted in some improvements in text rendering and clarity. There were also some improvements made to the handling of ambient lighting by the panel, which helped black depth a bit compared with Gen 1. This year for 2024, Samsung are releasing their third generation of QD-OLED panels. The new Pico inkjet production process from this generation has made it possible to now produce high pixel density 31.5-inch size panel, commonly referred to as 32 inches, for the first time, with a 3840 by 2160 4K resolution and a 240Hz refresh rate. That's boosted the pixel density from around 110 ppi to 140 ppi. This 32-inch panel is available with a flat format or a subtle 1700R curvature. You can check out our video link below as well for loads of information on all the monitors that will be using this panel that have been announced so far. It's already in production, and we've recently reviewed screens like the Asus ROG Swift PG32UCDM and the MSI MPG321URX that use it. Samsung Display are also already producing a 27-inch size panel with a 2560 by 1440 resolution and a 360Hz refresh rate, which will be the fastest available for now until LG Display release their competing option later in the year. There are again flat and curved options available, although so far we've only seen the flat version adopted in screens like the Dell Alienware AW2725DF, for instance, that we reviewed recently. These third gen panels carry over the pixel structure from Gen 2, so there's no further updates there, although the higher pixel density of the 4K panel does help further with text clarity. New durability and maintenance features are also made possible with their quantum enhancer technology that is part of this third generation, which is now giving rise to longer warranty periods from display manufacturers and new burn-in cover as well. We've seen some confusion online about whether these panels are Gen 2 or Gen 3. To clarify, the 27-inch and 32-inch panels are both Generation 3 from Samsung Display's point of view. There's maybe some confusion when some monitor manufacturers refer to their own second generation of monitor perhaps, although generally they seem to be leaning on the Gen 3 QD-OLED panel for marketing point of view anyway. Once again, these are definitely both Gen 3. As an update since our last video, we know now that Samsung Display will also be releasing an updated 34-inch ultra-wide panel during 2024. It will have the same 3440 by 1440 resolution as the Gen 1 panel, which is no longer in production now and is end of life, but the refresh rate has now been boosted to 240Hz. We believe this will have the same 1800R curvature as well. Confusingly, Samsung actually classified this panel as Gen 2 despite it being produced in 2024 alongside their Gen 3 panels. It's got the updated pixel structure like the other Gen 2 and Gen 3 panels, but it doesn't have the quantum enhancer features that the 27-inch and 32-inch panels have. We like to think of this then as Gen 2.5 given it was released this year after Gen 2 panels last year, just to avoid confusion if we can. The Gigabyte Aorus MO34WQC2 that was announced at CES this year has been confirmed as featuring this new Samsung panel. We should make a quick point here that all three of Samsung's QD-OLED monitor panel generations have the same 1000 nits peak brightness spec, and while power efficiency has been improved, the push for higher brightness in their QD-OLED panels has really been reserved for their TV-sized panels at the moment. We mention this only because it's a bit more relevant in a minute when we talk about LG.Display's WOLED panel generations. We know that Samsung are also planning to produce a 27-inch size panel with a 3840 by 2160 4K resolution and an even higher pixel density, which should be around 165 ppi if the panel is the exact 26.7 inches in size as their current 27-inch panel is. It was showcased actually at CES this year briefly, but this won't be produced until 2025 next year, and we expect this to form part of probably a fourth generation of QD-OLED. Further details around enhancements and improvements are not yet available, but more info on this when we get it, of course, along with any other panel information that might form part of that new generation. Let's look at the other OLED monitor panel manufacturer then as well, and that's LG Display, who make all of the WOLED technology panels. The naming convention for their generations is a little bit more confusing, largely because their monitor panels first appeared in what they officially refer to as their third generation, which they call Meta Technology 1.0. This is because they had been producing much earlier versions for TVs for a long time. We like to think of the monitor panels in distinct generations, which makes it a little bit easier to divide them into groups based on their production timescales and their specs. So the generations that we will talk about here are our naming conventions, but we think they make sense and are a lot easier to follow. Their first generation WOLED monitor panels were produced last year in 2023, with a 27-inch and 45-inch size option produced. The 27-inch panel has a 2560 by 1440 resolution and 240Hz refresh rate, and that's available in flat format only. This has been used in loads of screens already, including, for instance, the popular and widely recommended ASUS ROG Swift PG27AQDM. Last year, LG Display also produced a 45-inch ultrawide panel, which had a 3440 by 1440 resolution and 240Hz refresh rate. This had a low pixel density though on such a large panel, only around 83 ppi, but the panel was available in flat or curved 800R format, with some manufacturers like Corsair even making a bendable monitor using it. Being part of their Meta generation, both of these first-gen monitor panels included micro lens array or MLA to enable their 1000 nits peak brightness spec. This year in 2024, LG Display are producing what we think of as their second generation of WOLED panels, with new sizes and new options available. You will see LG talking about their new Meta Technology 2.0 on their website, but as far as we can tell, this is not actually being promoted for their new 2024 monitor panels, and it's likely a feature set reserved for their top-end TV panels for now. They refer to all of their new 2024 monitor panels as just Meta in their press releases, as recently even as January. So the new monitor panels for 2024 all seem to be within that single Meta generation still, not Meta 2.0 as far as we can tell. We like to refer to them as Gen 2 though, given that they're being produced in the second year and have some new sizes and specs that distinguish them from last year's panels. Firstly, there's an updated version of their existing 27-inch panel with 1440p resolution and 240Hz refresh rate again, but the new version has a higher peak brightness spec of 1300 nits, and LG are even planning a potential glossy coating option for this panel, but we've not yet seen that adopted anywhere. LG Electronics have used the new second-gen 27-inch panel in their recently released 27GS95QE monitor. This updated panel will supersede production of the first-gen panel, which is now stopped. And the fact that this is an updated version with a higher brightness spec from their older 27-inch panel just reinforces why we like to call this Gen 2. To go along with this updated 27-inch panel, they've also produced 34-inch ultrawide and 39-inch ultrawide panels. Both have got a steep 800R curvature, a 3440 by 1440 resolution and 240Hz refresh rate. We've already reviewed the first 34-inch monitor using the new panel with the ASUS ROG Swift PG34 WCDM, and several 39-inch monitors were announced at CES this year, but none have actually been released yet, although both of these panels have been in mass production since December 2023. Also this year are two eagerly anticipated panels that we've already seen adopted by some monitor manufacturers, and what we like to refer to as Gen 2.5, as they are a little bit different to the 27-inch, 34-inch and 39-inch panels that we've just discussed from Gen 2. There's a 31.5-inch, or more normally referred to as 32-inch panel, with 3840 by 2160, 4K resolution and 240Hz refresh rate. This will be a direct competitor to Samsung's QD-OLED panel that we've already talked about and that is already in production. The difference here is that with LG's version, it can also support dual mode operation, allowing you to drop to a lower 1080p resolution but boost the refresh rate then up to 480Hz if you want. That's a unique feature to LG's 32-inch panel. Like the other Gen 2 panels, this will have a 1300 nits peak brightness spec, but the reason we refer to this as Gen 2.5 is that it also includes an updated subpixel layout, moving away from the current RWBG layout to a more optimized RGWB, which is expected to offer improvements in text clarity and so on. This 32-inch size panel is still expected to go into mass production around May-June this year, meaning that monitors will probably be released around August-September 2024. We've seen various models announced that will use this panel, for instance the ASUS ROG Swift PG32UCDP. The other Gen 2.5 panel is being produced in the same timescales that we just talked about, and it's a 27-inch size panel with a 2560 by 1440 resolution, but an increased 480Hz refresh rate. This will compete directly with Samsung Display's currently produced 360Hz QD-OLED panel. Again, it's got the 1300 nits peak brightness spec and also that updated pixel layout like the 32-inch panel does. ASUS have actually already announced a screen that will be using this panel coming later in the year with the ROG Swift PG27AQDP. There is another so-called Gen 2.5 panel that we know of that was planned for this year but only penciled in for possible production in December 2024 at the moment, which means monitors won't be released until probably Q1 2025 at best. It's a 45-inch ultra-wide panel with an increased resolution of 5120 by 2160, which is bound to be a popular option. This will have the 1300 nits peak brightness spec again and the updated subpixel layout like the other Gen 2.5 panels. It's expected to be produced with a 165Hz and 240Hz refresh rate option and will be curved, although we don't have details about what the curvature will be, but we expect it to be 800R like their other panels, to be honest. We've yet to see any monitors announced using this panel, maybe because it's only in the planning phase at the moment and not expected to go into production until much later on this year. Maybe we'll see some news at Computex in June on this. That makes up their Gen 2 and Gen 2.5 panels that we know about for 2024 then. Next year for 2025, we do know that they have some plans for what we call Gen 3 monitor OLED panels, but firm details on these and release dates is still to be confirmed. They're intending to produce new 34-inch ultra-wide and 39-inch ultra-wide panels, but with a higher pixel density and increased resolution of 5120 by 2160, but the same 240Hz refresh rate as their current panels in these sizes that were produced this year. Those would also have the updated pixel layout and continue to feature 1300 nits peak brightness spec. These are in the planning phase for a possible Q4 2025 production, so still a long way off for now. Towards the end of next year, they were also exploring a fundamental change in their panel design and the possible move to a true RGB subpixel layout, doing away with the long-standing white subpixel on their panels, at least in the monitor market. We'll refer to this as Gen 3.5, and they have plans for a 31.5-inch and a 27-inch size panel with 4K resolution and 240Hz refresh rate. Further details are still to be confirmed, but they're tentatively listed for production in Q4 2025 at the moment. To answer a few common questions that we see about these OLED panels as well, firstly, the 27-inch 4K panels will be produced probably next year in 2025. So for now, if you're after that size and spec, you're going to have to wait a little bit longer. At least we know they're coming though. There's no currently listed plans for any 38-inch ultra-wide panels at the moment, which seems to be a popular option amongst some users with its 3840 by 1600 resolution and that larger vertical resolution space than normal ultra-wide panels. There's a chance LG Display will look to develop one at some point, although it's not on their roadmap at all for either this year or next year at the moment. But we do know that they're still investing in this size in their IPS black LCD panels, so it's at least not a dead size option to them. We'd love to see an OLED panel in this size too, but for now it does look like we're going to have to wait. The other size people always seem to ask about is smaller 24-inch size panels for smaller gaming screens. At the moment, again, there's no plans from either manufacturer to produce OLED in this size, although you'd think that 1080p and even 1440p resolutions would be viable within their current capabilities for pixel density. There's not a lot of overall innovation in this size segment anymore though, and we expect that for now, the production costs and yield rates make producing smaller OLED panels for a segment that is generally used to lower retail pricing for monitors, it makes that impractical. Maybe in time, as production improves and costs come down for all these panels, it will allow LG and Samsung to explore other smaller sizes and push OLED into more mainstream and lower cost monitors too. For those after a large format panel, there were at one time plans to upgrade the 42-inch WOLED panel from LG Display from its current 120Hz refresh rate to 240Hz. That's actually disappeared from the latest roadmap we have, while the current panel is still being mentioned. But that doesn't mean that it's gone for good. We still expect to see an update at some point, but we don't have any firm information on timescales or other specs at the moment, I'm afraid. Hopefully that was a useful update and it provided some answers to some of those common OLED questions that we see. Let us know in the comments below which panel you're most interested in and which new screen you've got your eye on this year. We've got loads of other monitor and OLED news coming, so do hit subscribe if you want to stay up to date on that. Thank you for watching. We'll catch you next time.